I'm going to share my screen, I think. Good morning. Oh my gosh, how awesome.
Hey, we got Dark County folks in here.
Are you kidding me? How fun. Okay, everybody, welcome, welcome. Good morning. I'm going to just move ahead. We're asking you to sign in to answer the polls, but we're also asking you if you would just identify yourself in the chat. So thank you so much. Good morning. Oh my God, this is so great. 45 people already. Oh my goodness. I wish I could see everybody. I'm going to quickly scroll before I have to start talking. Oh, awesome, Medina. Nice. My neighbors. I'm from Lake, so Medina's just down the road. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for signing in. It's great. Good to see you. Oh my goodness, Greene County, nice. Akron, awesome. Trumbull, awesome. Wood, Butler, oh my God, this is awesome. Ashtabula, you are my neighbor, Ashtabula, because I'm in Lake. Marion, Pike, Washington, all right. Columbiana, Athens. I think we've hit all the corners of the state, I think. Paulding, Trumbull. Oh, this is so awesome. Very nice. Oh, I love it. Good morning. Good. Oh, T. Oh, awesome. Oh, I'm so glad we have a therapist with us. My background, I'm a speech language pathologist, so I will make sure I connect some of the content to a therapist's approach. So thank you so much. Vinton. Oh, awesome. A county I don't think I've been to, Vinton. Awesome. Kim, are you the OT or the, I'm gonna just, yeah, you are. Okay, good. Thanks, Kim. Franklin, awesome. I will start at 9 or about, we'll give people a minute or so. Kansas, oh my goodness. Awesome, hi Mindy, welcome. I will start on time. I will stop oohing and ahhing at all the people, but I do appreciate you identifying yourself. That's great. Lucas, great. Another Lucas. Oh, good, 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 good. Hi, Colleen. Awesome. Hey, Boris, how are ya? Good to have you. One of my former coworkers. Let me have a moment. Oh, Melissa, good to see you. And we are, okay, we still have about 2 minutes, so I will wait. Thank you, everybody, for signing in, answering the polls. And also identifying who you are, where you're from. Oh, great, Morgan County, yes, nice. Hey, Deb Peterman, nice to have you. Oh, good, Akron Children's Hospital, great. Oh, so good to have you. Ashtabula, my neighbors, great. And are we slowing down on the entering? 104, good. Miami, hi Miami. I've been down to Miami several times. Oh, great, Portage.
Barb, let's just give it one more minute. I'm admitting people as hard and as fast as I can, and they just keep coming.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. Thank you. Thanks so much, Tracy. Tracy, just let me know when you feel you've caught up.
Well, like you say, I want to respect everybody's time here. So let's give it literally 60 seconds and I'll just keep going from my end. But
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm looking at my at the clock. Great. Columbiana, Pike, Dark. Hi, Dark County. Good to see you again. All right. So I'm just going to start with some just overall information. Thank you all for introducing yourself in the chat, putting your name, your county. I'll show that again. My name is Barb Seferis. I'm not going to do a big introduction of myself because I think a lot of you have heard me or met me before, but please continue identifying yourself in the chat. I want to thank Tracy Mans from the Nysonger Center. She is our project manager and also the Family Resource Network of Ohio coordinator. She has given you the Zoom link, set up the Zoom, made sure you got the materials, and will be supporting me and helping me through this presentation. So thank you, Tracy, so much. We asked you upon admission to answer a poll and also to ask you to sign in. Thank you. Continue signing in. We really appreciate it. And we want to, can you show me the poll results, Tracy, just so I know kind of job-wise and age-wise?
Sure.
And wise. Thank you.
Sure. Let me end the polling and I'll share
Okay, great.
so everybody can see.
Okay, so. So lots in transition and adults. Awesome. All right, I will try to give examples across all life stages, but please know the resources that we've shared with you cover all life stages. So if I don't blatantly share something related to the age, life stage that you're supporting, please look at the resources. We wanted to make sure you had all the resources. So just a little bit of information as you're signing in. This is a repeat of a presentation for SSAs and other professionals we did in March. If you attended that session, this has the same CEU approval number, so you won't be able to get additional hours, just so you know that.
Oh God, Barbara.
Yes.
I should just go home.
And can you mute yourself? If you have questions at any time during the presentation, please use the chat function and Tracy or I will monitor it. And if Tracy can't answer the question, she will notify me. She'll just let me know and articulate your question for you. We have over 125 people so far on. And so I'm not going to take questions auditorily. Please type in the chat. So just also as you're signing, some people are still signing in. I'll let you sign in. I also want to tell you this session is not about teaching you how to complete the ISP. I can't do that. And that's really not the function of Charting the Life course. For those of you that work for a county board or provider, you know that when you go to DODD website and you look at that ISP page, it tells you Charting the Life course will help you develop the ISP. And it says, click here for more information. And what it does is it takes you to lifecoursetools.com, which is the website. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the tools and the resources from Charting the Life course and how they can help you complete your job functions, whether you're working for a county board, for a school system, for a provider, whether you're an SSA, employment, or a therapist. We have at least one OT on the call. It doesn't matter what your role is, we all still have the same functions. And I'm also not going to talk about how to run an ISP meeting, because I will remind you a couple of times during this call that there is nothing in CMS guidance or Ohio rule that says there has to be an ISP meeting. The rule says the plan has to be reviewed annually. So I'm not going to address having people run their meetings, because running a meeting that's not necessary to me is not empowering people. So this is a 3-hour webinar, so thank you. It's long. We will take a comfort break somewhere in the middle. So thank you for that. Thank you for attending. You should have gotten all the handouts. We sent you 7 to help you. And a little bit about me. I worked in the IDD field for over 45 years in Cleveland. I retired from the Cuyahoga County Board. I've had a variety of roles. I started my paid life as a DSP sub, both in the residential settings for children and adults, and also in the schools. And I started my life as a supporter and as a caregiver as a child. My brother Nick was diagnosed when he was 6 months old with a developmental disability, and I was just going into kindergarten, so I was 4. We had home-based services. This was in 1958. It was not by a county board. Nick was not eligible for county board services until he was an adult. So all the services he received growing up were private and private pay. I've worked in a variety of roles. I was a licensed speech language pathologist for 45 years. I retired my license in December. I worked as an SSA, and I've had a variety of other roles. I am an Ohio ambassador for Charting the Life course, as is Tracy Manns, who is our project coordinator at Nysonger Center at the Ohio State University. It means we've gone through more extensive training through the National Charting the Life course team, or the Nexus, at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. And I've also been a mentor trainer in the learning community for person-centered practices for, I don't know, over a decade, and a trainer for 24 years. So I am going to bring the perspective of the fact that Charting the Life course is well received by families. They find it easy to understand and use, and it certainly helps professionals to do their role. So, oh shoot, I have the wrong, oh yeah, no, I have the right slide. So the Charting the Life course trainings are provided by the Family Resource Network of Ohio through a grant from DODD. I hope you share this resource, Family Resource Network of Ohio, with families, so they have a way to get information that's meant for families. There are lots of videos on that website, also ways to connect and ask for support and help. So let me set the stage. I'm going to give you an overview of the principles and framework of Charting the Life course. I'm going to introduce you to some of the most common tools and talk about how Charting the Life course and person-centered thinking are complementary. Talk about how we can use the tools across abilities and life stages to complete your SSA, but also other professional functions. If you're a teacher, a therapist, a provider, an employment specialist, a transition specialist, it doesn't matter. It helps us all support and empower people with disabilities and their families. So just a little bit about Charting the Life course. On the left-hand side, we have principles that guide our work. They are represented by icons. We want to make the information usable, understandable to all people of all abilities. So we use a lot of icons. And it is the only person-centered approach I know of that was developed by and for people with disabilities and their families. On the right, you see that Ohio is part of a national community of practice. And what I love about that is we get to learn and hear what other people are doing all over the United States. And so this is not just, well, it's something Ohio does, but this is something that's used nationally across service systems from early intervention through aging. And I've had the opportunity to actually work with departments in different states that support young children, school-age children, adults, and also the aging system, as well as DD, mental health, and other services. In Ohio, what we want to see is that everybody understands the terms of Charting the Life course, and that families use it to organize their thoughts and share it with people supporting them, and that professionals use Charting the Life course resources and tools to support and empower families and use the information from them. What we don't want you to leave with is, oh my gosh, here's another form I've got to do. As I said before, Charting the Life course helps you complete your professional job functions. If there are families on the call, it also helps you organize your thoughts and then share it with the team so that you can be a member of that team and not just be the one that has to answer questions. And again, it's not about the meeting, it's about the process. So we're trying to share the information and empower people, families, and professionals. If you have family groups or other groups at the end and you say, boy, it would help if they heard about this, please let us know. We are grant funded, and so all of our work is available to groups, county boards, agencies, schools, anybody supporting people and families for free. So please contact us. A community of practice, and we do have a community of practice in Ohio, is a group of people who are passionate, and we come together, commit to continue to learn, and also share our learning. We have a community of practice meeting coming up in October. Oh, great. It's gonna, and so we hope you will join us. It's on one of the later slides, but you can also sign up for the community of practice on the website. We love operating as a community of practice because we know people do things differently, and hearing what people are doing is how we broaden our understanding and our integration of Charting the Life course into our work. If you could all make sure you mute, thank you. I just want to review, for people who have worked with me, they know I go right to rule. And I want to show people why we're doing what we're doing. So I pulled out some of the information from the SSA rule. We need to assess, and I don't care what your role is, we all need to assess. I never worked with anyone as a speech language pathologist until I did an assessment. So any clinician, employment, you have to assess. We need per rule, but also per Medicaid guidance, and it's been in rule for about at least 17 years that I know of. It predated the first SSA rule. We have to know what's important to people and what's important for people. And we need to identify supports to help people have the life they want. We also need to make sure we develop a person-centered plan, and this has been in rule for probably 25 years. It means it's an ongoing process, so please, I know that the procedure is an ISP meeting, but the planning should be ongoing, and we shouldn't be learning what's important to people at their ISP meeting. We should know that way before the meeting. SSAs, you are probably the only role where you recommend a budget. So that one is probably yours alone. But we all, no matter what our role is, we need to have effective communication, and we need to help people choose providers. And some of you are probably going, no, provider selection is not part of my job. But as a speech language pathologist, I had to support people. Which provider of technology do you want to use? Where can you get services in the community? So I did support people as a clinician, also as an SSA. And we need to provide ongoing service planning and coordination. So no matter what you're doing, you always have to reflect, am I helping the person move towards what they want? And if not, what can we do to change that? So we all perform these functions. We assess, we plan, SSAs recommend a budget, we communicate and coordinate, we assist with provider selection, and we provide that ongoing coordination. I love sharing the Rehab Act because I want to show everybody that it's been almost 50 years that people with disabilities have civil rights. Look at the rights, and please notice that making choices and enjoying self-determination are two separate items. Self-determination is a civil right. It is a civil right that belongs to people with disabilities since 1988, when they were included under the Civil Rights Act. It is the right to make decisions that affect your life, to have control over decisions that affect your life. We all know that we do not make decisions alone. We consult with other people, and people with disabilities and their families also have that right. So even if you're working with people that you say they can't make decisions, their family can make the decisions. They can use supported decision-making. There are lots of opportunities and possibilities for people in Ohio. We also know from the CMS settings rule, which is affecting every county board, every service provider, that we need to promote full access to community life, and we need to promote lives that people want to live. So it really is in line with our principle that people should receive supports in the context of their family and their community, that circles on the left-hand side. We also know from the CMS person-centered rule that plans need to be understandable to the person. And hopefully charting the life course will give you some resources that can help the plan be meaningful to the person. I do national core indicators interviews, and I love when I ask people, do you know what's on your plan? And they say yes. And I say, what's on your plan? And they cannot tell me. So we need to be more supportive and empowering to help people know what's on their plan. And charting the life course gives you several resources. So in charting the life course, we talk about our why. Why do we do our work? And our why is that we believe that all people and their families have the right to live, love, work, play, learn, and pursue their life aspirations in their community. A lot of your county boards have this as your mission statement or something very similar, but this also comes from federal law. So it is the why we do our work. That means we want everyone to have a good life. The people that receive support and also the families. Please recognize we want families to have self-determination. It's not a program, it is a civil right. And that means control over decisions affecting one's life. And we also want people to be interdependent, because none of us is independent. We are all interdependent. We want families to be supported so that we recognize their strengths, their capacities, and their resilience. I hate when people say, oh, I had a call from a family, they're in crisis. No, families call us because something is not working and they need help. Nobody, no hospital system or medical system says, oh my God, I got a call from a family, they're in crisis. No, we call because we need help. And we may feel good because we can say, oh, they were in crisis and I helped them. But let's be real. Their families are not in, a lot of you have dealt with crisis. Crisis is not when someone makes a phone call and asks you they have a problem. So let's not judge families that every time they call, they're in crisis, because they're not. They need help. And please remember that help is defined by the person receiving it, not by the person giving it. In person-centered thinking, we want to make sure people have the life they want. And we want to make sure they have positive control over that life, but also that they're seen as a valued member of their community, and that they are also supported through paid and unpaid supports. Now, okay, I'll wait. We want to help people get better lives, not just better paper. So I know you're all trying a balancing act. I've got to write the good paper so we can get accredited. I've got to be in compliance. I've got to do the paper a certain way. We also need to make sure that that paper helps people get better lives. So we are probably, I would challenge you, we are not writing person-centered plans. We are writing compliance and authorization plans with person-centered elements. Charting the life course will give you those person-centered elements. So we know that all of us, regardless of our job, regardless of the age that we're working with, life stage, have the same overall outcomes that come from charting the life course, from person-centered thinking, from Medicaid guidance, and from Ohio rule. We need to support people and families. We need to empower people and families, and that means giving them tools and resources to increase their control and power, and to give them their civil right of self-determination. We want people to be seen as valued members of their community. Please know that some of the old language that we used to say is valued citizens. And we know that in this time in the United States, the term citizens is not inclusive of all people. And we want to be inclusive of all. So we say valued members of the community. That means we want people to be seen as human beings, and we want them to have the life they value. And we'll talk about quality of life and the life domains, how they can help you, help people think about the life they value. So when I talk about empower, I'm not talking about people leading their ISP meetings. I'm talking, that's a procedure that you have to follow. I don't know where it came from. It's not in rule, but it's a procedure. What I'm talking about is empowering people through the process of thinking about their life, what they want, and sharing it with people who support them. So we need to reframe how we think about supports. So charting the life course is really about having conversations. So there's no checklists, okay? Charting the life course will help you have those conversations so you can fill out your paperwork. It's a different way of thinking. It's really about having high expectations. We want people to have experiences and opportunities to see what they really want. We want people to look at different supports, not just through the service system. And what we don't want is that people just see, oh God, here's another tool, or it's a program. It's for anyone, regardless of age or ability. I shared with you, I was a licensed speech language pathologist for 45 years. I did not work with people who could sit down with me and have a conversation. I worked with people who had other ways to communicate, and I have yet to meet the person, regardless of age or ability, who could not tell me or the people who know them well through their words and actions what they like, what they don't like, what they want, what they don't want, what's a good day or a good life, and what's a bad day and a bad life. So we need to listen in different ways, and we need to have different conversations. I have seen families use Charting the Life course to organize their thoughts with their babies. And I have seen families use Charting the Life course with their older parents who are experiencing dementia and can no longer tell them what they want and what they don't want. So there are no yes buts in Charting the Life course. Yes, but I work with people who have mental health issues. So did I. Yes, but I work with people who are involved in the justice system. So did I. Yes, but I work with people who don't use words. Yeah, so did I. There are no yes buts. It's just a matter of how we engage people and get the information. So our why is we want all people to have the life they value. Our what are our principles, what we believe. As I said, this is for everybody, regardless of age or ability. We recognize the value of family systems, and that when something happens to one person in the family, it affects the whole family. We know that there are life stages from birth to the end of life, and that we can use Charting the Life course framework, tools, and resources across all those life stages. We know it's important to have a vision, whether it's a short-term, a long-term, a big vision, or a very narrow vision. And it's important to have experiences and opportunities so people can make informed decisions. How do you know if you like sushi if you've never tried it? How do you know if you like, for me, how do I know I like country music when I've never listened to it, you know? So we need to have experiences so we can identify and make informed decisions. We talk about life domains, and I'll talk about that. And we talk about everyone has needs in 3 buckets. We want to see integrated supports, that people receive supports not just from the service system, but from 4 other areas. And we want to see people and families engaged in decision-making, whether it's local about a procedure, whether it is as a county board member. I know there's a push now to have people receiving support sit on the board. You know, the phrase, nothing about us without us. Why aren't they on the board? And I served on several boards as a sibling. So, and also having people and families part of conversations at the local level, at the state, and also at the federal. So we still focus on the person, but we don't exclude the family. So it's not the person versus the family. And I know I've heard, yes, but they're 21 or 18, so we don't have to talk to the family. And all I want to do is ask you, how many of you live with another adult? You don't have to tell me. And what would they think if you went home today and said to them, I want you to be person-centered. It's all about me. I'm in the center, and it's all about what I want. And I'm guessing your family member or whoever you live with is going to have some words with you. And they're probably not going to be very nice words. They're going to be like, who the heck do you think you are? We are part of a family. What affects you affects me. And so we value family engagement because it is part of being holistic. I would be remiss if I didn't also talk about siblings, because one of my challenges throughout my adult life is that people would talk about families and they would say parents. And I'd be like, excuse me, I'm not a parent, I'm a sibling. And we need to recognize that siblings may have a role. And we often call ourselves the club sandwich generation because we may be taking care of or supporting our brother or sister who's in our generation, our parents in the generation above us, and our own children in the generation below us. I hope if you are working with siblings who are supporting their brothers and sisters, that you share with them the resource of the Sibling Leadership Network. There is a closed Facebook page just for adults who are siblings of people with any disability. So it's not just IDD, any disability. There are about 5,000 people on that closed Facebook page, and it includes people from all over the world. It is an amazing, supportive, safe, comfortable space. We recognize that everyone in a family cares about each other and cares for. And look at this, there are 7 different delineations of how we care about, 3 of them, care for, 4 of them. And we want families to look at, and people with disabilities, who do they care about? Who cares about them? Who do they care for? Who cares for them? So I'm sure some of you have met people, have worked with people. I know when I was an SSA, I had 3 referrals in 1 month about 60-year-old men who were supported by their 80 and soon to be 90-year-old mothers, 3 different families. And when I went to meet with the one family, the mother said, honey, he's not going anywhere. God put me on this earth. I'm going to be 90 next month. This is my job. Her son had a job, had benefits, had a car, drove his mother to all of her appointments, hairdresser, grocery shopping, medical appointments. They lived together, the 2 of them. They cared about each other. They cared for each other. She said, oh, we're fine. We don't need any help. I said, what do you do to support your son? He wasn't there when I went out to meet her. He was at work. The sister was there because the sister wanted him to move into a group home. And I said, what do you do to help your son? And she says, oh, honey, I have to shave him. I was like, okay. And she said, and I have to help him get in and out of the bathtub. And I just went, oh my God, a 90-year-old mother helping a 60-year-old wet son in and out of a bathtub. I just freaked. I said, do you have grab bars? She said, oh, honey, what are those? And I just went, can I see the bathroom? And I said, can I have somebody come out? They're an occupational therapist. Maybe they can give you some assistance and tell you about some things. Oh, okay, honey, you think they would be helpful? Oh, yeah, I do. And we did. But I knew that they had a reciprocal relationship. And right now, it was not the time to talk about breaking up that relationship. We know that all people exist in the context of family, whether they are biological or chosen. So I grew up in a Greek American family. I call people aunt and uncle that are not related to me, but I also have I don't have a sister, and both of my brothers are deceased, but I have a very close friend. And I think of her as a sister, and she has called me her sister. And that's because emotionally we're very close and very supportive. We care about each other. We care for each other. We care about each other. So please don't measure the caring for and about of family members by their presence at your meetings. Some families do not like meetings. When my brother he still was in high school, so he was probably 18. Was he 18? Anyway, when I graduated from college, my mother said, do you understand? You went to school, you know what all this means? And she said, here's your brother's folder. You can go to his meetings now. And I said, Nick, can I go to your meetings, your IEP? And he said, yes. And I said, okay. Why? My mother did not want to hear for the umpteenth time that her baby had cerebral palsy. She knew that already. She knew what he couldn't do. What was the team thinking? That we didn't know he couldn't dress himself? How do they think he got dressed every day? So anyway, people don't necessarily like the meetings. I talked about the 3 buckets of support. Think about in your own life. If you went to the doctor and he told you you had high blood pressure, what's the first thing you're doing? You're probably taking your smartphone out and Googling high blood pressure because you want information. What does that mean? Then you're asking the doctor, is there medication? What do I need to do? And then you might even start talking to your friends. I know you have high blood pressure. You told me, what are you doing? But it's not just medical. Think about getting a car. Think about changing jobs. You want to get information. What's out there? What are the goods and services? I laughed because I wanted to trade in my car. I wanted to get a new car a couple months ago. And I thought, and my dealer was sending me all sorts of stuff. We need your van. We need your van. So I went up there and I said, yep, okay, I'm ready. I want a new car. And I said, I want a van. I've driven a van for close to 30 years. And I've, because I had to carry stuff. And they said, we have no vans. I said, what do you mean you have no vans? That's why we want your van. I was like, okay. So then I started looking, what do you have? And I thought, okay, is this the time to break and get a car for me versus for my family obligations? But and then I started asking people, what do you think of your car? So we do this all the time. We don't sit down and say, oh, let me fill my 3 buckets. But we do this as part of our problem solving and thinking. The one thing we need to stop doing in our field, if we want to empower people and families, and if you as professionals want to do a good job, we have got to stop using cliches, because cliches are words that we use all the time that mean nothing. Nobody can define them. And if you can't define it, how do you know you're doing it? And if you can't define it, how do you explain to families what to expect? And if you can't define it, how do they know they're getting the support that you're telling them you're giving them? So let's look at some of those cliches. And those of you that know me, this drives me crazy. Natural support. This is a CMS term. I know you have to put this in your plan, but let me give you the secret. When families hear the term natural support, they know what it means is you're not going to pay for it. You're not going to help me. You expect me to do it. So when my partner, George, had a stroke 3 years ago, we had all sorts of people from the aging system come into the house. And they would say, oh, Barb, you're the natural support. And I would be like, and my mother also had a stroke at the same time. So I had aging system for 2 different people, 2 different medical systems, so 2 different teams. And one time they came in and they said, oh, you're George's natural support. And I looked the woman straight in the eye and I said, no, I'm his lover. And that's the last time she asked me. I thought, how dare you give me a job where you have a definition? You're not defining it for me. And you're going to have expectations that I'm supposed to do something. And you haven't told me what those expectations are. How dare you do that? The other one, I just puts me right over the edge, is thinking outside the box. What is the box? And how do I know if I'm thinking outside of it? Let's be real. Let's tell families we need to think beyond the service system. We need to think about what's in the community. We need to think about technology. Independent. None of us are independent. I already had one mother tell me, oh my God, this was the life-changing moment when you said none of us is independent. My 17-year-old son won't talk in his IEP meetings because the teacher keeps telling him he needs to be independent. I keep telling him he needs to be independent. And she said, after you said that, we talked to him, his dad and I, and we said, we're so sorry. None of us is independent. We're sorry for telling you that. And he looked at his mom and said, I thought you would be mad because I can't be independent. He never talked. And once she said that, he started saying what he wanted to do. Why are we putting an expectation on people that we don't put on ourselves? I already told you about person-centered planning. New normal, is that as of 9 o'clock today or as of 12:05 when we finish today? Things keep changing. Why do we keep talking about the new normal? And why do we talk about places and spaces? Are we in a place or are we in a space right now? I don't know. Our biggest cliche that we use with families is community. Community, what is it? We call community integration, community living, community employment. What else? Oh, community outings. because it's Thursday. And so, tomorrow I'm going to start calling my friends and ask them if they want to go on a community outing because my Jeep will now hold 6 people. Are you kidding me? We don't talk like that. What is community? It's not a program. It's where we belong. It's where we go on a routine, regular basis. And people miss us if we don't show up. It's not going to Walmart. It's not going to Giant Eagle. It's not going bowling, unless you're on a bowling league and you go every week and people know you're coming and miss you. So sociologists tell us we have 3 places. We have our home, we have our work or what we do during the day, school, volunteer, whatever. And our 3rd place is where we go. And if we don't show up, people miss us. So think about your community. What is it? Is it your faith-based community? For me, it's the gym. I go, they know me. It scares me sometimes. They know me by name before I check in. And if I haven't been there, where have you been, Barb? Oh, geez. But where is your community? Do you have a group that you meet with? Do you go out with friends on a routine basis? Do you go to your kids' activities? That may be your community because your kids have pulled you into their sports teams, their choir, or whatever. And how do you know what your community is? And how do we know what people's communities are? It's where we share our gifts. So I loved a story about my friend in the Cincinnati area. She has volunteered with her church to go to Nicaragua for over 25 years. And one morning we had breakfast at the Synergy Conference today. And excuse me, I asked her, did you go to Nicaragua yet? And she said, no, I'm going in a month. I said, oh, I've never gone on a mission trip. Tell me what you do. And she said, oh, Barb, I put up walls. What do you mean? And she goes, people don't live in houses. They live in cardboard boxes. They make, houses out of cardboard boxes. We put walls up.
Hi.
Okay. Then she said, I said, what else do you do? She goes, I paint. Now I know she's an artist. So I said, what do you paint? She goes, the walls. Okay. Then I said, what else do you do? And she goes, well, sometimes when we're putting the walls up, I might take the kids aside and tell them stories about Jesus or tell them stories, children's stories. I said, oh, you're a storyteller. She said, no, I just tell them stories. Okay. What else do you do? She said, Barb, look, pulls out her smartphone and says, I had a pancake breakfast at my church to raise money. And I made the centerpieces. Look at them. And she told me the meaning and they were beautiful. I said, these are gorgeous. And I said, you're an artist. She goes, no, I made centerpieces. I said, you're a fundraiser. She goes, no, I had a pancake breakfast. And then she told me that every year she takes toys to the kids. And I said, can I ask you a personal question? And she said, oh, sure. I said, does the church give you money? And she said, no. She said, my sister helps me budget, and all year long I budget, I save money, and then I use that money to buy the toys. I said, you're a philanthropist. And she said, what the blank is that? And I said, it's someone who uses their money to help others. Think about the difference in the language I used and she used. She described activities. I described valued roles. We need to start helping people identify the valued roles they have in their life. For those of you that have gone through person-centered thinking training, there are 11 skills that we teach. We teach you how to get information using those discovery or listening skills. We teach you how to keep track of how you're helping people, how you're moving forward with those everyday learning skills. And we also teach you how to manage resources, not manager, like as a manager, but how do you as an individual staff member manage your own resources, your time, your skills. And there are 2 ways to do that. So we know that person-centered thinking and charting the life course are complementary. They empower all people regardless of age or ability. Both have the same outcome. We want people to have a life they value, and we want them to be seen as valued members of their community. And they help us do all those functions, not the procedures, but our functions. So how we learn about them, how we plan, how we monitor if we're supporting them and helping them have the life they want. We sent you a worksheet, and as we go through the tools, I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to ask you to share, but well, maybe I will occasionally in chat, but how do you think you can use some of these Charting the Life course resources and tools to help you do your job? So you can pull it out, you can print it, just think about it. Every so often I'll show the slide and ask you. The most common resource we use with people and families and professionals is the portfolio, which we sent you. If you have an old portfolio where the first page, the first tool is called a one-page person-centered profile, please no longer use that because of the negative connotation of the word profile. Please download this from lifecoursetools.com and use the term description. We want to start talking about people as human beings and not related to their disability. So, and we also want to talk about supports, not needs. So when my mother had a stroke, I will tell you that when they came in to assess, they would say, can your mother get dressed? Can she take a bath? Can she fix her hair? Can she? One time they said, does your mother fix her hair? And I said, nope. And they said, oh, do you do it? I said, nope. And they said, oh, she can't fix her hair? I said, nope, that's not true. I said, she has gone to the same beauty shop for over 40 years. She has a standing appointment. So even when we ask the questions, we may not be getting the answers that we need. And I wasn't going to make it easy for that person asking me the questions. I was intentional because I wanted to show her you're not asking the right questions. So I turned to her and I said, are you asking me what would be helpful to help my mother get up in the morning and get ready? And she went, yes. And I said, okay, Mom, what's helpful when you get up in the morning and get dressed? My mother was living with me. And, oh, you have a chair in the bathroom. I can sit down when I get ready. Yeah. Sometimes you have to help me putting things over my head because my arms, Think about that. Supports versus needs. I couldn't tell my mother, gee, Mom, you can't cook anymore. You don't know how to get dressed. You can't unbutton. You can't. I approached it with, let's make it easier. What can we do to make it easier? Support. The one-page person-centered description has 3 sections. What do we like and admire? Why do we say that? Because we want to identify the person's qualities first. What's important to and how to best support me. You don't need to use this template. In fact, the best one-page person-centered descriptions I've seen are Word documents that people can develop, and they can put their own photo if they want, and they can add icons and memes or whatever is meaningful to them. When we talk about like and admire, and please, 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 we don't do this with everyone unless there's a reason. So I'm not saying from now on, you got to do a person-centered description with everybody. There's got to be a purpose. Like and admire are the qualities people have. So I'm giving you a list from Dr. Google of qualities. More than likely, what I see on people's one-page person-centered descriptions are activities. They're in Special Olympics, they swim. Okay, that's great, but what are their qualities? If they're in Special Olympics, is it that they're competitive? Is it that they're athletic? Or is it that they're just social and want to hang out with a bunch of people? If they swim, again, what is the quality? Is it that they're athletic, or do they like the, I know several people who go to swim exercise classes, and why they go, yeah, they get in the water, they swim, but they also all go to breakfast afterwards. So it's this community that they have. What are the qualities, not the activities? We want to meet who that person is. I will tell you, this is a very hard section for people with lived experience. When I ask them, what do people love about you? They tell me I'm nice. And so we may have to affirm their qualities. Families, we may have to affirm. And so a lot of times I would start with saying, I worked with one team where the provider said, can you come in? Nobody wants to work with this gentleman. And this gentleman was known by everyone in Cuyahoga County by first name. You know, he was a challenge, but I liked him because he was ornery. But anyway, and so the provider said, I'm going to invite, he had 24-hour supports. I'm going to invite the shift that supports the 8 people who live in this licensed home before they, I'm going to pay them to stay over. I'm going to pay the next shift to come in early. So we had like 15 people, and in the living room, they had put chairs in a circle. And I asked somebody, I said, I'm going to start with you, get ready. Tell me a quality you like about him. And it got to, so they said, it got to one staff and she said, I can't think of one thing. And I almost died. I thought, your director is in this circle, your supervisor is in this circle, and you can't. So I just went, okay, we're going to go past you. And I went to the next couple of people, and finally she said, I thought of something. And I was like, well, please say something right, nice. And she did. And I thought, oh my goodness, that was the only time when someone said, I can't think of anything. When it got to me, I said, you're so hospitable. And he goes, what the blank does that mean? And I said, when I rang the doorbell, you answered the door. You said, now I had worked with him, but he did not remember me. And so he said, are you the lady that's coming here? And I said, yes. And I said, I'm Barb. It's nice to see you. And he took me in the living room and he said, that's your chair because it's the most comfortable. And then he said, do you want some water? And I said, no, I'm fine. So when I said he was hospitable and welcoming, he was like, what does that mean? I said, you gave me the most comfortable chair in your house and you offered me water. So sometimes we have to identify and affirm. Under important 2, please consider the life domains, which I'll go over, but please remember that in person-centered thinking, we talk about 8 areas of things that are important to people: relationships, rituals and routines, things to do, places to go, rhythm and pace, status and control, things to have, purpose and meaning, and culture and identity. It is not just one section. Most of the times what people share is they like to go to Walmart, they like to go to eat at McDonald's, and they like to go bowling. And I call those the Holy Trinity because I can hear those anywhere in Ohio. I've done it across the United States. I still hear the same 3. And if it's not McDonald's, it's the buffet. If it's not Walmart, it's the dollar store. But all those fall under places to go. What about the other 7 areas of their life? And why are these important? Why do we even ask about important 2? Because when we have a good life, we have what's important to us in our life. And so what people tell me for relationships is, of course, girlfriend, boyfriend, friends, rituals and routines. Think about it. We all have routines. We all get up in the morning. We all get dressed. We all go to work or to wherever, whether that's your dining room table or an office in your house. We all go to bed. We all eat meals. In those routines, what are your rituals? Do you have a water bottle in front of you or a coffee mug that is yours that only you can use? Do you sit in the same chair when you eat your meals? Do you use the same kind of toothbrush and toothpaste? Do you eat the same breakfast? Think about status and control. You and I have status and control. One of the things that we all show with status and control is we have smartphones. What do people with disabilities want? They want technology. Why can't I have an iPad or a tablet? They want an ID badge like you that opens a door. Status and control. They want a key to their house where they live. Purpose and meaning. What gives us all purpose and meaning, and what is our culture and identity? The third section is how to best support me. And it's not about what people cannot do. It is what other people need to do. So instead of saying this person can't follow directions, multi-step directions, what one woman in Miami County wrote on her one-page person-centered description that she wrote for her employer: when you teach me something new, show me, tell me, show me, watch me, and then tell me how I did. It could be something like follow the behavior support guidelines. It could be don't tell me what to do, give me two choices. One mom for her, I think he was 10, for medical, well, remind me to wear headphones in a noisy place for anybody, his teacher, anybody. And one thing that my brother Nick always said was, don't talk to me like I'm a child. He never weighed more than 75 pounds, thank God, because I had to lift him. And he was small. He wore boys' clothes, you know, sometimes men's very small clothes. But he said, don't talk to me like I'm a child. He said, staff think because I'm little that I'm a kid and I'm old enough to be their father. And so don't talk to me like a child. And you know that, don't you? You've heard that talk. Hi, Nick, how are you? And he would just roll his eyes and I'd be like, oh, Lord, here we go. So here's my one-page person-centered description as a trainer. And I asked people that I mentored and people that I trained to give me the input. So what people like and admire about me is I'm patient, I'm passionate, I'm knowledgeable, I'm encouraging, I'm respectful. What's important to me is that I'm on time, that you're engaged, that I'm prepared. Poor Tracy knows that. I texted her at 8:15 this morning. Tracy, are we ready with this? That I'm punctual. You know, if I'm 15 minutes early, I'm on time. And how to best support me, ask questions. So I want you to think about yourself at work. You are going to share this, so get ready. I want you to think about what do your coworkers like about you? So my coworkers like that I was organized, I was knowledgeable. It was not uncommon for someone to come to my cubicle and say, do you have this document that we wrote 10 years ago? And I'd be like, hold on a minute. Or do you know, what was important to me at work is to have time to organize myself. I usually took the first 15 minutes and did my email, checked my email, my voicemail, and made a to-do list. Important to me was that I was punctual, and the best way to support me was to be punctual, because I would sit in a meeting if someone was late and I would be, there's 4 of us, you're 10 minutes late, you just wasted 40 minutes of man work. And so, hello, next time be on time. Best way to support me, if you need to talk to me, ask me if it's a good time to interrupt me. What else? Oh, don't talk to me if I still have my purse and my briefcase on my shoulder, because it means I haven't gotten to my desk yet. Nothing can be that important. So those are some things to support me. I want you to write a couple of things down right now. What your coworkers like about you, what's important to you at work, and what should your coworkers do to best support you? We have 130 people. We're going to put you in groups of, let's do groups of 4, Tracy. introduce yourself because you will, it's a random selection. So introduce yourself, tell people what you do, and then say, here's one or two things people like about me. Here are a couple things at work that are important to me. Here's how you could support me if you were my coworker. And you have 4 people. Let's do 5 minutes. Everybody gets a turn. You're not doing your autobiography. You are doing a quick snapshot, less than a minute. It takes me 37 seconds to introduce myself. So we'll put you in we'll put you in breakouts for 5 minutes, 4 people each. We'll see you. Bye. Tracy, I'm going off camera and off audio during the breakouts.
For everybody still in the room, you should have seen a message pop up on your screen that would allow you to join the breakout room. If you have trouble, unmute and let me know. We'll try and assign you to a different room.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was supposed to join the breakout room. Do you mind sending me it again? Thank you.
So just a reminder, you do get CEUs, which means you need to participate. So we should have you all go into breakouts. I still see that there are, oh, good grief. I know that there's about 4 of us that can stay in this room. So there's about 10 of you that still need to go to a breakout.
So Barb, with so many people not joining the rooms, many people ended up in rooms by themselves, and I was doing my best to shift them into other rooms, but it took a good bit of the time, just so you know.
I'm going to make an announcement as we come back. There will be another breakout room, and we expect you to accept immediately when it pops up
Okay.
and go into that breakout room, and because we are offering CEUs. So yes.
I did not mean to hit the button so early, so I'm back early.
Okay.
Shoot.
Everybody's coming back. It's all good.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So we had 134, I think, so I'll wait for them to come back.
We got 5 seconds.
Okay. Is that it? Did we drop down to 122?
Like it.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay, okay, great. Okay, welcome back. A couple of things, please, to remember. We are offering you CEUs, so we do expect you to participate in the breakouts. There will be one more. We expect that you do click and join a breakout room and participate. And so that is part of the CEU. If you were just listening to a webinar, that would be different, but that is why we ask you to join and even to keep your camera on if you can. So thank you for that. We want to make sure that you are really participating. So I hope that what you heard in your breakout rooms is what you hear when you have conversations with people about what's important to them, how to best support them, and what people like and admire. Whenever you do a one-page person-centered description, there's got to be a purpose. I know some of the county boards do them as part of the ISP process as kind of a general, quick one-page snapshot. Who is this person? And that's great. And that's why it's one page, because everybody will read one page versus even some county boards that are doing the pilot for the new ISP have told me the ISP is 30 pages long. So how many people read 30 pages? Most people will read one. The one-page person description has got to be developed with the person. So it's not something you write for someone on your caseload because you know them, but it's what they want on it. It's what people who know them well identify. So this is my brother Nick's. The reason I like to show his is, first of all, it's a Word doc, okay? And it's got a photo. It's got a photo of him in a convertible. Why? Because he loved cars. And a convertible, when you live in Northeast Ohio, is, you know, you can't really drive one that often because of the weather, but a friend had a convertible. Please look under great things about him. This is a general one. This is not one for employment. If it were written for Nick as a job seeker, the first thing listed would not be ornery. Okay, yeah. Because that would not be what an employer would want to hear. How to best support is in quotes because Nick said it. Please don't ever, ever use the pronouns I, me, my, unless the person said it. I know some people will tell me they have my plan, and I'm like, did you write it? And they're like, no, then it isn't your plan. Just like I'm not going to write your performance review and say it's your performance review, but I'm going to write it and then put on the heading, it's your performance review. So please only use I, me, my if you're using quotes. Look under important too. It's relationships, things to do, places to go, culture and identity, status and control. And if you can't see the status, I will tell you it is hairstyled, stylish, comfortable clothing. So hairstyled, one of our challenges throughout my time growing up was finding someone who could style Nick's hair because he couldn't sit in a barber chair. And so when we found a barber, we did not have, my mother was a single mother. We did not have a lot of money, but Nick got his hair styled. And he wore appropriate clothing for someone his age. Okay. He did not wear sweats with his name all over it until he was at the end of his life and he couldn't tolerate tight clothing. I gave you lots of examples. I really am not going to read through them because you can look at them, but please remember you can use a Word doc. Some people like to put things on it like NASCAR or Brutus or Cavs or the Cincinnati team or that team over in Pittsburgh or the team up north in Michigan. Why? Because they are immediate conversation starters. Somebody sees it and goes, oh, you're an Ohio State fan. Oh gosh, okay, I went to Ohio State, or I went to that school in Michigan, whatever. But it's a conversation starter and it truly is person-centered. I tell families and providers, keep a copy in a plastic sheet protector, put it somewhere where anyone can see it. Some people with lived experience have told me they frame it and have it in their apartment. And when staff come in to help them, they tell them, read my one page first before you talk to me. It can refer to other documents, but please know it can be used for many reasons. With this past year and a half, families have truly seen the importance of having a one-page person-centered description for hospitalization. I wrote them for Nick because he was hospitalized, but also for people I supported as a service coordinator when they were in the hospital or when they went to rehab. Keep it simple, one page, put a photo so people know who you're talking about. When there's a photo, the person is a person and not just a file. Keep several copies. I always tell people, put it in a plastic sheet protector above the bed. When families were not allowed or visits were limited, I told families, call the social worker at the hospital and ask them to put it above the bed. And think about writing it for the hospital. I'm going to go through a couple examples and then Tracy, can you share your story? Thank you. Thank you. So think about what's important for a hospital. It's not the same as every day, okay? Even when my mother had a stroke and when George had a stroke, I kept a bedside vigil, but you know, you leave the bedside. You go to the bathroom, you go to buy a cup of that delicious coffee in hospitals. Oh my God. And if you can't have a friend bring you in food, you get to enjoy the delectable culinary talents of the hospital cafeteria. So you leave, make sure it's posted. For some people, I have family members that are chaplains at hospitals, and they said they couldn't visit people and still can't if there isn't a direct request. Having a channel, putting the channel, leaving the TV on. How to best support, think about the hospital. I worked with somebody whose name was Melissa. And when she was hospitalized, I was there. And when she went to rehab, I was there. And people would come in and go, Melissa, how are you? And she would stick out her tongue and flip the bird, which they couldn't tell because of her physical. And I would, after they would leave, I'd be like, what was that about? And she goes, I hate Melissa. My name is Missy. I said, first thing we're going to write on the piece of paper, call me. I said, they're being polite. They're using the name on your record. We'll put, call me Missy. But think about it, what to do. Contact my sister at my phone number so I can talk over a decision. How people express pain. Here's my brothers for hospitalization. I went in the hospital room and found his lunch tray once and said, oh, Nick, I'll feed it you. And he closed his mouth and turned his head away. I said, what's the matter? He goes, that's lunch. It was 5 o'clock. I said, oh, shoot. So use a spoon to feed me. I went and told the nurse, she said, he must have not been hungry. I said, he can't feed himself. He's not hungry. I can hear and understand you. Ask me yes, no questions. He used a laptop with voice output. He couldn't use it when he was in bed because it had to be mounted and positioned and all sorts of stuff. But he could answer yes, no, and he could move his eyebrows. So I said, ask him yes, no questions. You can see the rest. I'm going to ask Tracy to share her very powerful story of the impact of a one-page person-centered description in the hospital.
Certainly, Barb, thank you for letting me share this. I think it is impactful, and it certainly affected me. My daughter is a nurse here at OSU, and she had a patient come up from the emergency room who was still bloodied. She was a 30-year-old nonverbal woman with autism. She had come up and she had fallen and knocked out all of her teeth. So she come up from the emergency room. So she was bloody. She was naked. She had not been given pain medication because she couldn't answer the question about on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain level? She had been given a hefty dose of ketamine to control her behavior and was also, I recently learned, came up in restraints. And she had no parent with her. She only had a provider with her. There was on the bottom of the cart a booklet about this big, 2 to 3 inches, a 3-ring binder of instructions for caring for this person. The book came up from the ER, still at the bottom of the cart. It had never been opened. And of course, the staff on her floor didn't have time to read that book either. So during her lunch, she called me and she said, I know you have something with that Charting the Life course stuff that can help me. I said, I do. So I emailed her a 1-page person-centered description. And so my daughter went to the provider, sat with the young woman and said, how can we best support her? First of all, why is she naked? The provider said she can't stand the gown. It pulls at her neck. It's sloppy in the back. She turns over. She gets twisted in it. She can't take it. So she keeps pulling it off. So my daughter said, well, what does she normally wear? Well, she normally wears a baggy sweatshirt and some baggy sweats. That's what she's comfortable in. My daughter said, oh, this is a hospital. They came up with some scrubs right away for her. And it just so happened the provider had a sweatshirt in her bag and they were able to solve that. And then she said, why is she so restless? What's going on? And she said, well, she's in a bed. And the only time she ever sleeps in bed is when she's in the hospital. So that's an unpleasant experience for her. She knows this is not going to be good. She said, well, where does she normally sleep? She said, well, at home, she likes to sleep in a recliner. Well, again, hospitals have those. So out went that bed and in came a recliner. She said, tell me about why there's no pain meds in this file. And she said exactly that. They don't understand how she expresses pain. She said, well, tell me. And she learned about her from there. And they went on to talk about, well, what should I put on the TV for her? What does she need? Does she need books or something to draw? How can we support her in this situation? And what came of that was amazing. She writes all of this down. The provider, who was well past overtime at this point, felt like she could take a breath, step out and get some of that wonderful coffee, like Barb said, until her parents, who lived in Dayton, were in Central Ohio, could get there. The nursing staff were thrilled to have this information. They all cared and wanted to do their best. They simply didn't know how to do it for someone who was nonverbal and unable to communicate. And then even surprisingly, the doctors came in and also truly appreciated it. And the lives of everybody in that room were impacted and made better. And then they could all work together to help this young woman, as opposed to nobody ever picking up this 3-ring binder. It was a powerful story.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
The power of one page, and that's all I'm going to say, the power of one page. Some of you, if you're not family members, you know that if someone gets agitated and God forbid hits one of the staff in the hospital, their hospitalization gets increased for a psych eval. And I had to, as a family member, say, you do that, and I am going to take him out of this hospital against medical advice. So you either discharge him now, or give me the papers for AMA. And they were like, oh, I said, go do it, because that's what's going to happen. And it wasn't, it was because they didn't know, they didn't listen. I will say that. And it caused more angst and more anxiety. So please, the power of one piece of paper. There are more examples. I'm not going to read them. I'm going to highlight some things. Look at this one. Distract Sam by conversation about feeding birds or growing plants when you're giving him medication or therapies or treatment. Very simple. The picture here are the 2 daughters, which are the people you're supposed to call. This one, Martin, make sure his phone is charged. Help him call his mom. If he gets upset, ask him if he wants to talk to Mario. There's the phone number. Help him make that call. Very simple. And for Jim, if he gets down in the dumps, remind him of all the great things he's done in his life. And he's a smoker, so he might need a nicotine patch. So you can use one-page person-centered descriptions for many, many reasons. And people can have several. They don't just have one, because they're written differently for different reasons. So they can have one as part of the ISP, but I've had families write them every year for teachers and send them to school. I had one mom who went, oh my gosh, I have to have surgery. My 40-year-old son has never been away from me. We've never been separated. He's going to have to go to respite. I better write stuff down because it's in my head. It's not written. And we were like, whoa, yeah, you better. Some providers have used it as a way to orient staff. Here are the people that you're going to be working with. Some providers in day programming have used it as the subfolder. Here's everybody in this group here. I don't know if any of you subbed. When I subbed in the schools or in the day program, I would be like, oh, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for getting here, especially if they called me a half an hour before they wanted to be there. Thank you for coming. And I'll never forget one day they put me in a classroom and they said, he bites, she spits, he kicks, she swears. Have a good day. We'll see you when school's over. And I just went, what am I supposed to do? And think about the power of this information for DSPs. We tell them somebody has autism, big deal. What does that mean? But if we say, this is how to support them, then they at least have the very functional, practical information. People have done this as part of their resume for employment. And a lot of people will actually take a photo of them doing something related to the job they want. So if they want to work on cars, maybe they'll take a photo of them washing a car or detailing a car, because they want a potential employer to see that they know what the job is. Some teams have done this. Some staff have done this as part of their team building with their supervisor. Here's how you can support me at work. So I want you to think about the one-page person-centered description. You could type in chat very quickly, which functions do you think it'll help you with? If you're, and remember, you do this with the person or the people who know them well, the staff, as in Tracy's case, the family. Which functions could it help you do? And let's get a couple of responses in chat. Can it help you assess or budget, communication, empower, provider selection? Oh, you're chatting. Oh, you guys are so cool. Thank you. Empower, absolutely. For a person, I had a community mental health counselor say to me, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this. I counsel youth that are in multi-systems. I'm going to do this with everybody I work with because they are never told about what a good person they are. They are always reminded what they have, the problems they have. This will be such a good self-esteem builder. So absolutely, yes, community member. Hello, I'm going to give this. People, if they're going to volunteer, you know, a lot of people with lived experience have said when people say, tell me a little bit about yourself, they go, but I have it written down. I can say, here it is, and they can read it, or they can remember what's on there and share it, as opposed to feeling like they're on the spot. Oh, awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. Update the photo as hairstyles change. Yes. Oh gosh. Oh, Angelique, that's too funny. He was bald in the picture you had him with red hair. Okay. Oh, that's funny. I laughed because I just spent yesterday looking through a box of old photos, like 20, 30 years old. And that was a comment I made to George. And that was a comment he made. I had hair in this picture. I was like, yeah, okay. Thank you for that, everybody. I love it. I love it. So one-page person-centered descriptions. Let me finish a couple slides. I want to wrap up this and then we'll take a 5-minute break. What we want to see is people use it to talk about who that person is. Always, when I talk to families, I say, what do you love about your family member? When I talk to staff, it's like and admire, but when I talk to families, it's love. And when I ask my mother, who's 96, when she can answer the question, or when she wants to tell me, she will tell me how ornery Nick was. So that is still the way she sees her baby. It has to be simple. You can have many of them, and it's not demographic. You notice none of them had the diagnosis on there because, hello, that's not who we're talking about. We're talking about the human being that people love, like, and admire. And nowhere does it have the services, God forbid. That just tells you what made them eligible. So no, we don't do that. And this would be a good time to take a break. Let's take a 5-minute comfort break. Do what you need, stretch, and we will see you back in 5. Thank you, everybody. Very cool, Tracy. Oh, geez. Fire drill. Oh, geez. Oh my gosh. So welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much. Somebody's on a fire drill. Somebody asked in the chat, what are the examples of the other? Renee, I typed in chat, you know, I never trust that I can capture everything when I make a resource or a tool. So I just put other, just in case people say, well, what about? You can add it. So that's why there's a couple of spaces for other. So thank you so much. I hope you can see, regardless of what life stage you're supporting, regardless of abilities, that you can see the value of having a one-page person-centered description. Some of you work in EI. We say to people, it would be great if you did this when you think about daycare, babysitters, what's happening, you know, wherever they're going to go next. It's a great way to introduce the person very quickly. And so people see the human being, not the disability labels. So thank you. If you have any questions, Barb, what about? Please put them in chat. I know there's a therapist on. You know, I used as a SLP, I use this a lot to tell people how to engage with people, how to communicate. As an OT, you saw things in my brothers about how to feed him, how to position him. So all sorts of uses, I think. So one of the cliches that a lot of times people say, oh, we want everybody to have a good life. Well, what is that? So I'm going to give you a definition because you know I hate cliches. So a good life for any of us is that we have dreams. And I heard somebody say, and I wish I could remember who they were, without dreams, all we get is what we're given. We have people who believe in us. You know, I grew up in a time when women did not typically go to college. And I had people who said, why do you want to go to college? Just go be a secretary. Oh my God, I thought I'd die. But I also had people who said, you want to go, you've worked hard, you should go. So, and I was like, yeah, you're right, I should. We need to have what's important to us. We need to be respected and valued. Most people leave their jobs not because of the pay or because of the benefits, but because they don't feel respected and valued. We want to have more good days than bad. We want to feel healthy and safe in our own definition and have control. So when I think about Nick, I think about, did he have a good life? Did he have what was important to him? And I think he did from his words and actions. Did he have dreams? Well, those of you that have heard me share, you see the picture of him in the car. He told us when he was 16, he told Jim and I he wanted to drive. We had a Volkswagen Beetle. Jim said one day, Nick's driving. I said, no, he's not. He said, yes, he is. I said, no, he's not. Nick is like, yes, I am. I'm like, no, you're not. And Jim said, pull the car out. I pulled the car out. We took photos. Jim said he's got to wear sunglasses. He's got to look cool. He's got to wear a cool jacket. We tried to put one hand on the steering wheel, one hand on the gear. You see the keys are in the ignition. We took pictures. We had them developed. We showed my mother. She almost killed me. What's the matter with you? What were you thinking? What were you doing? I said, Mom, the car did not move. Status and control. Look at my brother's face. For those of you that know about person-centered thinking, I shared this at an international conference, and Michael Small came up to me, the guru, and said, I want to have a picture and I want to superimpose your brother on a racetrack. So I just went, oh my God, that would be too funny. The picture on the right, he told his team he wanted to go to Disney. He didn't want to go with anybody else with a disability. It took him about 3 years to plan it. And we are at the Cleveland airport waiting for the pilot to give permission for his power chair to be loaded as cargo, because the chair, the battery was considered hazmat. So yes, he had dreams. Yes, people believed in him. Yes, he had more good days than bad. Yes, he was respected and valued. His provider, the manager, told me that if Nick didn't like a staff they hired, they started watching the staff because they knew something must not be right. Did he feel healthy and safe? Yes. And did he have control? Yes, he did, because when we learned he was dying, I made sure that doctors gave him all the information, that he made those choices, and that I supported his choices, even about his own funeral. And if you want to talk about person-centered, talk about supporting someone you love at the end of their life to make those informed decisions. I love this picture of Chris Nikic. He is the first person with Down syndrome to compete and successfully complete the Ironman competition, and you see what that means. But what I love about his story, and he did this last November 2020 in Florida, so it's very recent. What I love about this picture, though, is on the far left, you see him writing on a whiteboard, and his parents told him, you need to write down your dreams. And look at his dreams: buy my own car, buy my own house, get a smoking hot blonde wife from Minnesota, have my money to take care of my family, and become a famous public speaker. Why do I love this? Because we all know that if we write down our goals, we are more likely to reach them. There was a sports special about Chris, and it looked like a whole wall in his house, bedroom, I'm not sure where, but he had a whiteboard, and every day he would write what he had to do to train to compete in the Ironman. Every day, I got to run this far, I'm going to eat this food. And then he had free days. I can have pizza on this day or whatever it was. You know, I don't exercise, I'm not going to do anything. And I thought, how powerful. Remember the CMS person-centered rule. The plan has to be understandable to the person. How much more understandable is it than when the person writes it down, or we capture the information on something like a trajectory, not a 30-page document, but one piece of paper. The trajectory is the inside of that portfolio that we sent you. And what we ask people to think about, this is not done in a team meeting, not in an IEP, not in an IFSP, not in an ISP, not in an IPP, not in any P. This is really done in conversation with the person, the family, and over time, and give it to them to think about. But usually the categories are: a good life is we have friends and family and money. And when we talk to people and families and ask them, what do you want? What don't you want? Because see, that bottom bubble is what we don't want. I find that people with lived experience and families can often tell you what they don't want. People with lived experience will tell you, I don't want drama. And then I have to ask them, what does drama mean? And you know, it's been everything from people in my face all day bossing me around. I don't want to be with the same people I live with. I go to day program, I ride the bus, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to be around loud people. I don't want to be around people who complain. I don't want to be around people who are negative. Families, what they don't want, you all know. They don't want their loved one to be taken advantage of physically, emotionally, sexually, financially. A good life, families will tell you, I want them to feel good about themselves. I want them to have friends. I want them. One mom of a 3-year-old told me, I want her to have someone in her life who loves her that isn't her dad, me, or her grandparents. And I just went, at 3, she had a vision for her child. For those of you working in EI, I know parents tell us, I want them to walk, I want them to talk, but I usually ask them, what kind of life do you want them to have? So I change the question, not what are your outcomes for the IFSP, but what kind of life do you want? Where do you see them? What do you see them doing? Oh, for people with lived experience, what do you want? Number one answer, I want a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And I tell them how smart they are because that's the number one human need, is to be loved. Then they want a key to their house. They want to be able to go on vacation, to go different places. So how do we change that conversation from what goals do you have? And how do we, when someone says to us, when we ask them, what do you want? And they tell us system goals. I want to be more independent. I want a job in the community. I always ask them as opposed to where. I want to live in the community as opposed to where. We have taught people to say that. We need to ask them, what does it mean? Tell me what you really are thinking. I was talking to someone who lives in an ICF and is looking to move. And I said, where do you want to live? And she said, in the community. I was like, okay. She lives in a house right now. I mean, the ICF is a house, okay? And I said, what does it look like? And she said, well, it'll be brown and white because those are my favorite colors. I said, that's what you need to tell your team. You want, actually, she said, it'll be a beautiful house. And I said, what is a beautiful house? And she said, brown and white, my favorite colors. I said, that's what you need to tell the people that are going to help you. So we might need to change the conversation. So if you feel comfortable, if you could type in chat, something very specific, not family and friends, but is it FaceTiming with somebody every day? Is it having dinner with your own family so many nights a week because the kids are off in different activities? Is it that you go out with your friends once a month? What's a good life? And then what do you want to avoid? You can put it in chat. I'll look at it for a minute.
Barb, there's a chat where someone asked a question about if someone in hospice could apply their dreams. Would you like to address that?
Oh, absolutely. I've worked with several people in hospice. Actually, I asked my brother, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And supported, Boris, since I see it's you, Boris, as a speech language pathologist and working in the SSA department, I often worked with hospice and with people, and we asked them, what do you want to do? And one gentleman was living in Malachi House, which is a hospice house in Cleveland, and he wanted to work. However, physically, he couldn't go to the day program. And so what the team did is we took him piecework to the hospice. And the hospice staff was like, we can do this. And then what we did was we asked him who he wanted to see. And those people, we either made opportunities or staff brought things that people sent him. So yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'm so glad you asked that. And yeah, it was one of the greatest, I probably supported 10 people at the end of their life. And it was probably one of the greatest gifts. And that was before I found out that Nick was dying. So it was like, oh, I've done this professionally. I can do this personally, but it's a lot different personally. But yes, absolutely. Thank you for the questions. I love it. Going for walks with your favorite music. Very specific. Awesome. Awesome. That's what we want to hear from people. What are those specifics? Because we can't help them have a good life if all they tell us is family and friends, because you all don't like everyone in your family the same. So we need details. I like to show Ben's good life. Ben is from Missouri. His mom is one of the developers of Charting the Life course. But what I love about him is he actually put a photo of what's a good life. And you see the area going towards what he wants, but look at the area going down towards what he doesn't want. Our role as professionals and support is if the life starts going down towards what you don't want, how do you help people get back on track? Because we know a good life is not a straight line, a trajectory. We know. And let me remind you all that we all took a real dive in our good life a year and a half ago. We'll talk about that. We also can do an expanded or a trajectory for planning. And this is where we ask people, it's backwards planning. We've done this in the field for 30 some years. It's not new. Gosh, I can't even remember when we started doing backwards planning, probably the 90s. So probably close to 30 years. But you start with what you want. And then we know the importance of having experiences. So we look at the far left. What did you do in your past life? What experiences and opportunities did you have that are helping you get to your good life, but also helping you move towards what you don't want?
Why?
I don't, okay, thank you. And then in the middle, what do we need to do to keep going on that track of a good life? And what do we need to avoid? So on this one page, I hope that what you see is someone's plan that they identified, what they want, what they don't want, their history, and the actions to take to continue moving forward.
Barb, we
need-
have a very specific question in chat that
Yes.
I think you might want. She said, she had a question about talking about dreams that will not come to fruition is a difficult thing for her. Someone specifically wants to work at Meijer, but they will not hire that person. Or what if the lady who wants a brown and white house, she's going to probably get subsidized housing. That's not a real opportunity for them. What she'd like for you to speak to that and how you would deal with it.
Sure. I see the question now. Thank you, Ginger. Appreciate it. So absolutely. We would never say to someone, no, you can't, but we might say, what is it about working at Meijer that you like, that you would like to do? What is it that, maybe Meijer is the only place they know because it's the only place they go. What would you like to do? And then can we find opportunities for them to have what's important to them about wanting to work at Meijer in their life, not necessarily the activity. With the woman who said, I want to live in a brown and white house, I said, you might not find a house that's brown and white. She goes, I know, but those are my favorite colors. And so what was my next comment to her? Maybe you can have brown and white in your house, in your room, your linens, your bedspread, your clothes, your drapes. So let's see what's important to you about that and how can we help you have what's important to, not necessarily the activity. Does that make sense? Okay, your walls. Yes, Natalia. Yeah, maybe your walls can be brown and white, but let's not lose that just because we're like, oh gosh, we're not going to be able to find brown and white. Maybe the door can be brown and white. So when she comes home, she sees a brown and white door, or maybe she can put a brown and white wreath on the door. I mean, my brain is just going. I didn't want to go this far. But I love the creativity. Thank you. I know, Boris. Yes, my brain will explode. So Boris and I worked together for many, many years. It's good to see you. Thank you, Boris. So I want you to think you can use the trajectory for exploring. Just think about what that would look like. And then you could also use that expanded trajectory. We need to update it. And remember, it doesn't have to be the activity. Hello, there we go. So let's think about getting to the heart of what's important to people. So when the pandemic started, my friend Brenda and her son Derek, and I have their permission to share, they live in South Dakota. Brenda and I happen to do work together. We've presented on we've made international family presentations. We work together doing person-centered thinking. We work together as trainers in charting the life course because we are trainers. And so when the pandemic started, Derek had a job. And she said, Derek, you can't go to work anymore. She did a Facebook Live with Derek and said, what do you want to do? He says, I want to go back to work. And she goes, you can't. You work at a gym, it's closed. You can't go back to work. What is it that you like about work? What do you miss about not going to work? And he said, I miss my boss. I like talking to him. And she goes, okay. He goes, can I call him every day? She said, I don't think so. Maybe once a week. You can just say hi. What else do you miss? And he goes, well, I miss Bob. He comes to the gym all the time and he would always talk to me and we would talk about stuff. And she goes, okay, let's see if you can, maybe you can connect with Bob. And he goes, but I go to the live concerts. And she goes, there's not going to be live concerts now. So what did you like about the concerts? Well, I saw my friends. Okay. What else? Well, I like the music. Okay. So what did he do? He is friends with a guy that has a band. And he DJ'd an hour on Facebook with Derek. And he invited all sorts of people from all over the country and we could type in and his friend would play the songs on Facebook for an hour. And so that was, and he saw people from all over the country. He volunteered at the assisted living center where his grandmother lived until she passed away. And he would call bingo once a week. And he goes, Mom, I want to go call bingo. And she goes, Derek, you can't, they won't let you in. You know, we've got to keep people safe. I mean, this is last April. So nobody was vaccinated, you know, and she said, what do you like about calling bingo? And he said, I like helping old people have fun. And she said, well, maybe we could send cards. Maybe they'll let us come to windows and we can wave. So she was trying to think of how can he have what's important to him, not necessarily the activity. And so about a couple weeks later, I get this text from Brenda. Hey, Barb, you want to play bingo? Derek's calling bingo at 7 p.m. Central. And I was like, I haven't played bingo since I was a kid with my brother. So of course I'm like, oh, sure, Brenda, that'll work. And then after I responded, she goes, I'll send you a link and bingo cards. I was like, I'm one of the old people that Derek wants to make sure has fun. And it's so funny. Derek would have these bingo games. At first it was me, his mom, because she would help him call the bingo and the little balls. And his friends, he had a group of friends that they always had game night. Like once a month, they would go to different people's houses. And Mom's college roommate. Well, then Derek and Brenda presented at an international conference and all these people wanted to play bingo. So I've played bingo with people from Mississippi, Louisiana, Washington State, Oregon, North Dakota, South Dakota, Missouri, where else? Iowa. And Ohio has been the furthest east the game has gone. So, but what a great way, what a creative way to look at not the activity, but what's important. So you have the trajectory. What I want you to think about though is what happened to all of us a year and a half ago. One day you were going to work. The next day you were told, take everything home. Maybe you were told, but you're not coming back. So plan to stay home. Our trajectory of what a good life was went right down. What do we do now? So think about what your good life was on March 1st. And now what was a good life on March 15th or March 30th? Did you want to stay healthy? Did you want to keep your job? Most of you, I hope, actually had income. Think about all of your friends that lost their jobs because their businesses were closed. What did you want to avoid? Did you want to avoid large groups? Did you avoid going out? What did you have in your past that helped you? Did you own a mask? I didn't. You couldn't get a mask for nothing. I had rubber gloves because of some other things helping at home. I had Clorox wipes because I buy them anyway. I had a big pack of toilet paper because I go to BJ's and buy it in bulk, but I had no masks. So, and I also was a daily caregiver of someone who was high risk. So that was a past experience that impacted my decisions. And then what did you know how to do Zoom? Or did you just know how to join? How many of you had to teach family members how to use FaceTime? How many of you had to say, move the phone so I can see your face? Tip it, I see your ceiling, I want to see your face. How many of you had to say, flip the camera around? How do I do that? Oh my goodness. So think about, we all experience this. Now we may be at a place where we don't think about it as much, but maybe we do with all the variants that are coming up. So think about the impact on your life. The trajectory really helps families and people with lived experience think about their outcomes. It should not be done in a team meeting. We shouldn't whip it out and go, hey, it's your ISP, let's do a trajectory. But it's conversation you have. You can start the conversation. I've done it with people where I have a conversation, I just write on it, and then I say, I'm going to give it to you. It's your paper. Make sure you give the paper to the person. For EI, help families go back to what was their vision before they got the diagnosis. What do they want for this child that they love? It can be, the trajectory can be broad. Brenda truly thought when she did the trajectory with Derek that it was just going to be till September, because we all thought once the summer's over, we'll be able to get back to life. Yeah, right. So she did it. Let's just think for the next few months, but you can do it short term. I've seen families do it. What are we going to do this summer? You know, I've seen people do it. What are we going to do for a specific, specific part of life? For a hospitalization, how are we going to get through this hospitalization? How are we going to get through the birth of this child that we're expecting in COVID? It could be very short term. It could be whole life. It could be, how am I going to move? Or it could be very broad. Excuse me. I guess I lost my knack for clicking my mouse. Here's a group of people with lived experience. They developed their trajectory, cutting out pictures out of magazines. Some of them drew, some of them wrote words. This is a trajectory I actually did with a group of Project STIR. It was Stark County in Canton, Ohio. We had about 35 people participate. And we asked them through 2.5 days, we had them do some discovery. What do I like? What don't I like? What do I want to do in different aspects of my life? At the end of the 2.5 days, I asked them to put one outcome on a Post-it note and just bring one up. Well, people wanted to bring more than one, but one outcome per Post-it note. And we put them on a big 6-foot-long trajectory, what they want, what they don't want. When the superintendent came, Bill Green, who supported it financially, the Project STIR training, I said, you need to go look at the trajectory of what people you support said they want, what they don't want. One of the things that somebody said they want was, or didn't want, they didn't want to die alone. And people started jumping. Oh, we can help you make friends. We can put you in a social group. I said, stop. We need to find out from him, what does I don't want to die alone mean? And that is not done in a room of 80 people, 35 people with lived experience, 35 allies, and the trainers. No, you need to have a private conversation. We need to know what that means to him, not jump to answers. So anyway, I told the superintendent or CEO, whatever he's called, I said, Bill, you need to go look at the trajectory. He came back to me, he goes, my gosh, that's so powerful. I said, yes, it is. A month later, in the county board's newsletter, Bill had put some of the Post-it notes in his article about the impact of Project STIR training. So I thought that was very cool. In Charting the Life course, we don't talk about skill areas, we talk about life domains. We talk about those interrelated aspects of our life that we all talk about. So think about it. When you meet someone, what's the first thing you ask them? What do you do? Daily life and employment. I was on a national board meeting for the National Sibling Leadership Network in December. And one woman was introducing herself. She said, I recently moved from Nashville to Cleveland Heights. So in private chat, I'm typing, oh my God, Cleveland Heights. I grew up in Cleveland Heights. I went to Heights. Where do you live? Where did you move? She told me the neighborhood. I told her where I grew up. I said, I knew what she did because we're both siblings. And I knew her advocacy work because we're both siblings. And then I said, I still go to Cleveland Heights. My church is in Cleveland Heights. And she said, what's your church? I said, the Greek church. And she said, on Mayfield? I said, yes. She goes, my neighbor goes there. Do you know so-and-so? I said, yeah, it's a small community. You know, it's a tight community. I said, what are you doing during COVID? Are you walking in the parks? No, I haven't explored yet. And then she goes, we have to go to this coffee shop. It's on the border of Cleveland Heights, I think, and Shaker. And she said, because they hire people with disabilities. So in private chat, in 2-3 minutes, because we also had to attend the board meeting, we talked about daily life, community living, social spirituality, healthy living, safety and security, and advocacy and engagement. That's the way we talk about our life. If I asked you, do you have a good life? You are probably going to tell me, thank God I have a job that I like. I live in a neighborhood I like. I have great neighbors. They look out for each other. I feel I have spiritual practices, whether it's going to church or temple or yoga or whatever. I'm trying to take good care of myself. You know, I'm finally going back to the gym. I feel safe. I feel safe in my neighborhood. I also feel safe when I'm driving and in my car. And I do stuff that I enjoy to support other families. Sometimes we ask people, what's your vision? And they go, huh? Or they tell us the system. I want to live in the community. I want to be more independent. I want a job in the community. I don't even know what that means. I want to be independent. I don't even know what that means. So this is a vision tool. In the first column, you see the icon because we want people to understand the tools. In the second column, it's just a quick definition. What does daily life and employment mean? Third column is empty. You can write. Fourth column is for priorities. I don't really worry about that unless the person or the family wants to prioritize. And they don't have to fill in every area, but this is a good way to have that conversation. I was talking to someone who's a very strong self-advocate, and I asked her, has your vision changed? She has a trajectory, and she said, no, it's the same. I said, but you did this like years ago. You've done some of this stuff. Now, what do you want to do? She couldn't answer. And so I said, is there someplace else you want to live? What would it look like? And she goes, yeah, I want to live where the rent is cheaper because I'm paying too much. Okay. So by going through the domains, I could help her think about possibilities. So the 6 domains are listed. The last 2 icons are, what supports does the family need? What do they need? And then what are some integrated options to think about? I'm telling you, I've lost the knack of clicking my mouse. I have asked families to do the vision tool. I've asked mom to do it, dad to do it, the young adult to do it. Why? Because too often we make people all agree and none of us have consensus in our family. When was the last time everybody in your family agreed? We want to value that people have different perspectives. And then when we see the different perspectives, we can identify what can we work on real easily because everybody agrees. If there's disagreement, what do we need to change? What do we need to clarify? So I want a mom, let me tell my story. A mother who attended one of our information sessions in Cuyahoga County said to me, I took it home, I did it with my husband, my son won't talk to us. He doesn't want to talk to us. And she said, will you talk to my son? I said, absolutely. she said, he just moved into his own apartment. I think he was 25. And this was obviously before COVID. And I said, okay. And she said, what do we need to do to have you come? I said, I'll come. I'm happy to help a family. So she said, okay, let me talk to him and see if he'll meet with you. I said, please ask him, see if he's comfortable. I'll do whatever he feels comfortable with. So she calls me back. She said, he's comfortable. He's okay. He wants us to be there when he meets you, and then we'll see how to proceed. I said, absolutely. I go to his apartment. I meet him. He sends his family out the door, his parents out the door. And they said, we'll be downstairs. It was a beautiful day. He lives in Parma. He lives in an apartment building. In front of the apartment building was beautiful, grassy, beautiful area with picnic tables. They said, we'll be at the picnic table. Text us when you're done. I said, fine. I sat down, I talked with him. I had a portfolio. I didn't ask him the questions. I just started talking. I saw posters on the wall. I asked him about them. I started writing stuff down where I thought it fit. I said, let me tell you what I've written. I told you I was going to write down on paper because I can't remember things and it helps me. And I'm going to give you the paper. So let me tell you what I think I heard you say. Did I get it right? Read him back the stuff. He was getting a little antsy. It was 45 minutes. I had filled out the trajectory, the one-page person-centered description. We had started the integrated STAR. And I said, I see you're tired. Are you ready to wrap it up? He said, yes. I said, okay. I just want to tell you, your mom and dad shared their trajectory for you that they would like to see. It's the same as yours. You really need to talk to your mom and dad about this. I said, do you want to tell them today? No, no, nope. I said, do you want me to do anything? Nope. I said, okay, here's the paper. You keep it, but talk to mom and dad because it's very similar. So it's a great way to help build that trust and the mutual agreement to move forward. So think about the vision tool and think about and the trajectory. How can you use this? How will using a trajectory and a vision tool help you do your job? Type it in your the 6-foot-long trajectory. I actually took a trajectory to Office Max and paid for them to make me a banner. And 6 foot was as long as they could make it. And so I paid to have it made. And I paid to have it laminated because I thought I could use it a lot. And I did until the pandemic. So it is in a tube in my back bedroom. So anyway, thanks for the question. I can't remember what it costs. I don't know. So thank you for typing what you think, how you think you can use the trajectory and the vision tool. Absolutely, to communicate, to empower, to assess, to plan. Absolutely, provider selection. A lot of people with lived experience will hand people the trajectory, the provider, when they're interviewing them and saying, this is the life I want. How can you help me? I love it. I love it. Yes, work with people before the IEP meeting. You just flew by. I got to go back to you. Yes, Dawn, before the IEP meeting. Don't do it at the IEP meeting because families will tell me and people with lived experience say, I feel like I'm being put on the spot and I have to tell you what you want to hear. So have that conversation before. I always give the paper to people. They have said it gives me paper power, paper courage. And I tell them, add to it, think about it. Here's the vision tool. And let me show you some other resources you can share. I love it, you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, dig deeper in conversations. People will tell me, I asked them, they told me, yeah, you got to keep digging. You know, we just can't take the top layer. We've got to make sure we understand what people mean, not what we think. So we all know that there's a trajectory in life. We go from for families, they go from getting that diagnosis. I think about our family. You know, my mother and father found out Nick had a developmental disability at 6 months old. All of a sudden, we had home-based services. Those of you in EI, we had home-based services within a month of his diagnosis in 1958. Private agency, Cleveland, Ohio. We lived in, did we live in Cleveland at the time, or did we live in Summit County? I can't remember. I'd have to, it takes too much thought. But it is the current achievement centers actually sent a team. So I was going to kindergarten and I knew what OTPT speech was. I knew what range of motion was. They came to the house. And then, you know, he was in high school when the IEP process just came into being. But think about that transition a family goes through, service transitions. Think about the transitions above the line that a person goes through. You know, you belong to groups, you go to Sunday school, you go to scouts, you go to birthday parties, you play sports, or you're in a group activity, choir, band, something. You learn to say no, and that should be way down in early intervention. One of the first things I would teach people to do as a speech pathologist was to say no, and then teach the people around them how to recognize that no. We sent you the link to this experiences and questions booklet. It is free. It is on lifecoursetools.com if you don't have the link. What I love about it, you as SSAs, EI, even community, any role you play, as a therapist, I always ask people, what is your outcome? One gentleman told me, I want to make life easier for my sister who takes care of me. I said, what would make your life easier? And sis said, I have to feed him. It takes me 3 hours a day to feed him 3 meals. And we found a feeding machine. He wanted to speak at his church. So what did I do as an SLP? Did an assessment for assistive technology, helped him get assessments of different devices, try them, and then got him a device and helped sis learn how to program it so he could speak at his church. We can tie any service we provide to people's outcomes. It just means we have to think about how can I help you get there. This 2-page spread goes, it covers, each domain is covered. So this is daily life and employment, but it gives you questions to consider, to ask, to have a conversation, all the way from infancy to aging. So I may not be able to give you examples for every life stage, but you can go in and read the questions and use them to help families think about, does their child have these experiences? Have they had them? Can they have them? We always tell professionals and families, look at the life stage the person is in. So a lot of you work with transition youth. Look at that transition column. Use those questions to have conversations, but also look at the period before, the life stage before, which is school age. Did the child have all those opportunities? And then look at what's coming ahead, which is adulthood, so that we're preparing families on what to think of next. Those of you on this call, you do not start thinking about retirement at 65. You start thinking about it probably when you got your first full-time job. Is it Social Security? Is it OPERS? Am I going to have to open up a deferred comp? Am I, you know, when I was first employed, we could not open, government employees could not open special retirement, you know, independent retirement accounts. And so Ohio deferred comp was developed. So we could all kind of develop something like an IRA or a 401. So what do we do? Do we pay off our debts? Do we pay down our house, our mortgage? Do we downsize? So we all start thinking life stage ahead, if not 2 life stages. I love these quick guides. Please, please, please give these to families and to people with lived experience. the quick guide, there's one for every life stage. And so when you open it up, this is for transition. It goes through each of the 6 domains, and you can give it to families to think about. What is your son or daughter doing? What do you want them to be able to do? Or how do you support them to do these, have these experiences and opportunities? And then on the back, because it is 4 pages, this is 2 of the pages. On the back is a section for supports to the family and also integrated supports. So let's talk about life possibilities. Think about cameras. How many of you grew up in a time where you had a little camera and you put the black and white film in and you had to turn the knob and you had to thread the film? And if you weren't good enough, that film would come loose from where you were trying to thread it, and it would roll right back into the tube, and you lost a roll of film because you couldn't pull it out. And then you took your pictures, not knowing if they came out, took them to a drugstore or someplace, had them developed, and got them a week or 10 days later. And then how many of you, because you know, it moves, right? Got a Polaroid. Woo, we get to see the pictures right away. And the film cost a mint, and they came out dark, but you thought you were just hot, you know what? Oh, look at this picture. I took it right away. It came out. If any of you have old Polaroids, you probably can't even tell what the picture is now because the film was so bad. But we thought, woo, it's wonderful stuff. And then 35 millimeters started getting, what's the word? Affordable. You know, I remember when I bought my 35 millimeter, it was like, oh, I had a friend at work who was like an amateur photographer, and he was like, you have to order it by mail from New York. They have the best prices. Oh, okay. All right. Are you sure? Oh, yeah, they're the best prices. And oh, I bought a 35 millimeter. Woo. And then you needed 17 lenses. No, not really. And then you had a camera bag with the camera. And if you were really fancy, a tripod. And oh my God, it was like carrying another purse. Then, how many of you use this? Do you even own a camera anymore? Yeah. And what's coming next? What's innovative? Right now, the Islands of Excellence are having smartphones. We can edit them. You can look thinner, younger. You can make them funny. You don't have to wait to see what it looks like. You can delete immediately. You could take a video. What's innovative? We don't even know. Maybe it'll be we wear glasses, and if we blink 3 times, we get a picture. I don't know. I'm making it up. But what I want to say is we know the traditional options in services. Oops, honest to Pete. And we know the Islands of Excellence, which are things that are happening here and there, but not everywhere. And innovative, we don't even know yet. You know, we don't even know what's going to be innovative for taking pictures. So think about traditional. How many of you have families who say, I want them to live in a group home? And you're like, you know, they don't have to live in a group home. They can live somewhere else now. And what are those Islands of Excellence? And then the innovative stuff, we don't even know. Same with what they do during, how they get supported. You know, right now, most people in Ohio have staff that are hired by the provider. Very few are hiring their own staff. We don't even talk about micro boards in Ohio. We have self-directed services. We're hoping that that gets more broad and is not just in self, but it's also going to be limited to what services. We don't talk about time banks in Ohio. So these are Islands of Excellence. What we do during the day. This is where we're being challenged as a system, because we're being challenged with how are we helping people have what's important to them, but not in those traditional options, things that are more community-based. So how are we helping people go to college or get a career as opposed to community employment? We sent you this chart. If you have an older one or you have one that someone made up and gave you, please discard it. There should be nothing under innovative life options because we don't even know what those are yet. And the traditional ones we want families to look at, you don't have to just be satisfied with what's traditional. We want you to start thinking about what is creative. And then I will tell you that most innovative options come from families because they're not happy with what the system gives and they want something different. Excuse me. So for the trajectory, we want to see people and families develop it. We want staff to use it to record what they're hearing, but to make sure the paper belongs to the person. Give it to the person. Mom can do a trajectory, dad can do one, a sibling can do one. I facilitated some families and I had a sibling pair. The sister who moved back to Ohio because her dad passed away to help her mom take care of her brother, and the brother did a trajectory for his sister, and the sister did a trajectory for her brother. And the brother said the sister had been married and it was not a successful marriage. And he wanted her to find a man that would treat her nice and be a good husband. And I thought, and I didn't ask them to share unless they were comfortable. And he wanted to share it. And she said, I'm okay. And I just was like, oh my gosh. Remember, people have reciprocal roles in families. I was so touched and I was just like, oh my God. She moved here to help him. And he has a vision for her, which I thought was awesome. So how can you use the experiences and questions booklet, the 4-pagers, the exploring possibilities, and how can it help you do your job? If you want to type in chat, I'm going to quickly look at chat. Yes. Oh, Courtney, just be a smarty. You remember your mother using a camera? Thank you, Courtney. It just reminds me how old I am. I know. Oh, yeah, sending your film away. I love it. The smell of the flash bulbs. Oh, my God. I forgot about that. Okay. Thank you, Tanya. You're 35 millimeter old. Good. So how can you use the questions booklet, the 4-pagers, and the looking at life possibilities? I love it, you guys. You guys are great. Thank you so much. So let me talk about the integrated STAR. And I think we're gonna, we have time for one more breakout. So in the integrated STAR, in the white, in the STAR, you would put whatever the concern is. Or whatever the outcome is. You could do it, you could use it for anything. And it's a way to brainstorm supports. You always start with personal strengths. You always end with eligibility. So how many of you have had families say, but what can I get with the waiver? Or what can you give me? We want to shift the conversation to what are your strengths and assets? What do you bring? You can also use a split STAR, where you can look at what are the current supports and where do we need to develop supports. So again, this helps us be in line with the settings rule, helping people find support in their family, in their community. So we always start with personal strength. So let me use a couple of examples. My brother wanted to go to Disney. He didn't want to go with anyone else. His personal strength was that he articulated his goal. Okay, you can't get help if you don't tell people. His other strength was he knew how to plan and he knew he'd have to save. One mother of a 3-year-old told me, I want my child to have friends that have disabilities, but also do not have disabilities. What are your personal strengths and assets? She said, my daughter has never met an enemy. Everyone is her friend. So that's her personal strength. Another strength is both mom and dad are involved. Dad is a coach, so he's got lots of people he knows, lots of connections. Mom is involved in some organizations, lots of connections, okay? For another mom, her son wants to be a sports announcer. His personal strengths, he knows everything about sports. Relationships, for Nick, once he told people he wanted to go to Disney, everybody started offering help. Families said, We always buy him gifts. What does he need for his trip? We can buy those instead of buying him a shirt. Friends were like, I know a travel agent, do you need help? People were saying, I went to Disney last year. Let me share my information. I'm going to Disney in a couple of months. What do you want to know about? I'll bring you back information. For the mom of the 3-year-old, they were active in advocacy groups for families that have children with disabilities. So they had all those people they knew, plus they had an older daughter, and that daughter was involved in lots of activities. So they had lots of relationships to look at. Technology. For Nick, he had his own laptop. He knew how to use the computer, the internet. But what other technology? Technology we had to think about. Nick used a CPAP machine. Do we want him to take that to Florida? Nick used a power chair. Was he going to take that? Well, of course. Other technology. For the mom of the 3-year-old, she said, I think we're going to get my daughter a tablet. Sometimes her speech is difficult to understand, so maybe we'll program a couple of things, but we want to get it to put games on it so she can go to other little kids and say, you want to play my game with me? Because that might be a way for her to engage. For community resources, the young man who wants to be a sports announcer. Mom said, there's nobody but me and his dad. And I said, you have another son? She goes, yeah. I said, did he play sports? Yeah, he played on 2 teams in high school. Does your son volunteer at the high school? Do you know? She said, we know the coaches. Does he do anything? You're not going to walk into ESPN and get a job. What experiences does he have? For Nick, he could have gone to the library, right? For the little 3-year-old, she wants her to have friends. She started looking at community activities. Her older sister played soccer. Was she going to play soccer? No, she couldn't. So she started looking at other places where kids gather, dance schools, other activities, libraries, activities. And then eligibility specific. Nick had to pay for someone to take care of him. So he had to pay for staff. But another thing that we never thought of until one of his therapists said, if anything happens to Nick's power chair in Florida, Nick has Ohio Medicaid and Miller's does all the repairs. But if he's in Florida, Miller's can't do the repairs. Let me talk to Miller's and see if they have any kind of relationship with a provider in Florida where they could do a reciprocity. I never thought of that. I also never thought that his chair would be considered hazmat because of the batteries. So we're going to put you in breakouts. I'm going to tell you right now, you've got to go into a breakout. We need you to participate if you want the 3 CEUs. I want you to think about one of the outcomes that people have told me. You have it on the handout, but I want you to pick one. And then I want you to go through the 5 areas of the integrated STAR and brainstorm. So there's no conversation. There's no, I know somebody who wants to do that, but just brainstorm. If someone wants to write a book, they want to teach others about disability history, they want to drive, they want to work with children, make a quilt, be a photographer. Your group, pick one of those, brainstorm, start with personal strengths and assets, end with eligibility specific. And let's give them 5 minutes, Tracy, in the breakout rooms.
Okay, I see that everybody has been assigned to a breakout room. If for some reason you are needing assistance, please let me know. Barb, everybody will be back in 15 seconds.
Thank you.
Time was short.
And they're coming back. So if you could mute yourself as you come back, or we'll mute you. I think is that it, Tracy, 111?
Looks like where we're at.
Okay, great. So I'm not going to ask you to share, but I want to ask you if you want to type in chat, what was it like to brainstorm? And let me share, these are all things people have said, okay? These are not goals that are things I made up. So for the person who wants to write a book, when we brainstormed, one of the things that I learned is that there's a lot of self-publishing programs out there. For the gentleman who said he wanted to write a book, the SSA actually contacted the library, and the librarian put them in touch with a group that actually are self-published authors and actually meet once a month. So think about that. How can you build your community? It's because you engage with other people who have a similar interest. All of a sudden, he's part of a group of people who are publishing their own books. It was pretty cool. For teaching people about disability, the SSA said, I know a history professor. I went to the community college. I love him. He was great. Let me talk to him, talk to the professor. Professor said, I'd like to meet him. Absolutely. They met. The provider, the SSA, the young man met with the professor. The young man shared his passion about disability and history in that county. And the professor said, I would love to have you guest lecture at my class. Can I see your PowerPoint? And the young man said, my what? And the provider said, whoops, I guess we know what we got to work on. He knew it, but it was like, you got to have a PowerPoint, you've got to develop your presentation. And so that's what they worked on. Working with children, making a quilt. Oh my goodness. So when we've done this in groups, I can't believe the people who are quilters, and they're just like, oh my gosh, you can go here, you can go there, you can get support here. So again, thinking about possibilities. Did any of you share your reflections? I'm going to look in chat for just a minute. Yes, use your social capital. Absolutely. Love brainstorming. Great. It was a hurricane. I love it. But you know what? One of the gentlemen once, I was doing this with a group of SSAs, and excuse me, one SSA said, oh yeah, I got one for you. I have a young man that wants to raise an animal, show it, win at the county fair, and then butcher the animal, slaughter the animal, and butcher the meat. And everybody in the room went, okay. But everybody, I said, let's brainstorm that. And people were saying, does mom know about 4-H? Does mom know about Future Farmers of America? Does mom know about the Ohio State Extension Center or whatever? The SSA was like, I had no clue about all these resources. Took it to mom. The next month when we met, she said, mom also told me they recently moved to the county. It's a rural county. He can walk to the downtown area, and there's a butcher shop there. And he went in there, met the butcher, and the butcher has befriended him and even gave him his own knife. And the room of SSAs went, he's 14. The room went, he has his own knife. And I'm like, do we need to be concerned? Let's not jump to health and safety if there's no reason. But he had a friend. And so someone who was going to help him. There were no eligibility specific services authorized. And that's not our only job, is to find the eligibility specific, but to help people connect to their community. We sent you this resource. I love giving this to families. It's free. You can download it on lifecoursetools.com, but it shows the domains on the left-hand side. And then across the top are the 5 areas of the integrated STAR, starting with personal strengths and assets, ending with eligibility specific, and it gives you things to think about. So for the integrated STAR, this is done, it's great when it's done in a group because you get that group think, or you get that hurricane brainstorming about possibilities. You always start with personal strengths, you always end with eligibility specific. And it really helps people identify what's out there, because not everybody knows everything. I've also seen organizations do this related to a specific life stage. So I've seen early intervention do this, and looking at what are the supports available to families in our community for early intervention. Same with transition. What are the supports that are out there that families with transition age students can go to? I also recently did this with Dark County, challenging them to look at an integrated STAR for their county board. What are their personal strengths? What relationships do they have in their community? What technology do they use? Can they use? What community resources do they use? And then what eligibility specific resources do they use as a county board? You can use this to have conversation, to brainstorm, to identify resources. Supervisors tell me when an SSA comes to them and says, I have somebody who wants, I know I can't authorize. What do I do? It helps brainstorm and look at possible resources. So think about how you might use integrated STAR and integrated support options in your role as an SSA, and you can type those in chat. I love that you guys are typing. I really do. Thank you so much. I just so appreciate it. The breakouts are very fast. You're right. We have 3 hours, but I'll talk about other options. So I want you to think about how can you use Charting the Life course to help you do your job. Today, I know it was fast. I didn't say you would have competency. I told you it was an overview that I would introduce you to the tools. So we talked about, is it 9 or 11? 3, 6, 9 principles or tools or resources. You have them all. Asked you to think about how they can help you assess, plan, monitor, review, budget, communicate, negotiate, collaborate, help with provider selection and with community membership. And we're going to launch a poll. We want to ask you, what tool or resource do you think you're going to use in the next few weeks? And I think, can they select all or just 2? No more than 2. I changed it. I'm sorry, that was me. I did it. I changed it. Because I want you to be real. You're not going to use all of them in the next 2 weeks or the next month. I know the job. So think about it. And for the one-page person-centered description, only if you're thinking of using it other than the ISP for hospitalization, employment, provider selection. Wow, it's kind of funny. You're all over. That's great. I'm so excited to see that. That's great. Keep answering. I'm going to move to the next slide, but I appreciate you answering. That's awesome. I'm going to keep looking. So when we talk about quality, remember, ask yourself, are the services we're helping people access, are they helping people have the life they want? If they're going towards what they don't want, are we helping them get back on the trajectory to what they want? Are we helping them have what's important to, as well as what's important for? That's all language you need to deal with. Do you know someone's gifts so that you can help them share their gifts in the community so they are seen as a valued contributing member? Do you know what's important to the person in those 8 areas? Please, not just the Holy Trinity of McDonald's, Walmart, and bowling. And how are we helping them share their gifts? Please don't leave here thinking I've got to do this with everybody. This is a set of tools and resources. Thank you for that finish. That's awesome. So it's kind of all over. Good, good. I'm glad to see that. You can pick and choose what will help you do your job, what will work for this family. And please, whenever you're using paper with people, using a resource or tool, tell them why you think it will be helpful. Explain it to them. God knows as families, we are asked questions. We have no clue why you need to know it, the information. And I have often told people, you don't need to know that to help us, because I know what you need to know and I know what you don't need to know. Use the tool on yourself and always give the paper to the person. So in summary, our why is that we want everybody to have a life they want in the community. Our what is our 8 principles. You can use this with anybody. We recognize the importance of families. We look at life stages from birth all the way through aging and the end of life, that it's important to have a vision of a good life and have outcomes and work towards them, that we talk about life domains, not skill areas, that we all have 3 buckets of need. We need information. We need to know what's out there to help us, whether it's buying a car or getting medical treatment or getting supports for people in our family. And we need to connect with other people who have similar experiences. We know it's important to look at integrated supports, and we know it's important that people and families have a seat and a voice at the table. All of this helps you do all of your job functions. I want to wrap us up now. We have a community of practice meeting on October 27th. I think it'll be 10 to 11:30 instead of noon. It'll be an hour and a half. Is that right, Tracy? Thank you. Again, an error. Oh boy. A community of practice meeting is where we ask people to share what they're doing. So we'll have people sharing what they're doing to use Charting the Life course integrated into their practice and share the impact. On December 9th, we'll have a 1-hour live session on using the integrated STAR. We also, I know some of you have said this is fast. We do not profess to teach competency during this session. This is an intro. But what we have started doing is providing guided implementation series where we have staff, we meet with staff monthly for 5 months, and we actually support you to use the tools in your work, learn with each other, and get feedback. So we are happy to provide that guided implementation series to support staff to get some competency and integrate Charting the Life course into their practice. If you are interested in that, it is provided under the grant, so it is without cost. And you just need to contact frnohio.org. There's a way to request support, and so please do that. If you know of other groups, I'm working with we are sharing information with providers. Are there any community of practices in other states? Absolutely. You can check. Community of practices are usually set up by the state IDD or the DD Council. So if you are from another state, are you the person that's from Kansas? I think Kansas has a COP because I actually know somebody in Kansas. Kansas City Metro, are you talking Kansas City, Kansas, or Kansas City, Missouri? Missouri has a COP. Kansas does. Tammy Koslow is active in that community of practice. Is there anything else? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, check out Kansas. Check out your DD Council or your state, whatever your state department is for IDD. Every state has a different structure. If you could, the last thing, the resources, please, if you could type in chat what you appreciated about the session today. That's great feedback for us, and you will get a survey. So if you just quickly type anything you appreciated. We are just under, oh my God, I must have talked too fast. We are under 3 hours, but I am not going to keep you, trust me. The tools, great. The quick overview. Oh, new to the DD world. Okay, wow. Well, this was quite an overview for you. We are also happy to do more customized presentations. If you can't do the 27, how to learn about future ones. I don't know what that means.
They were referring to other COPs. So I was explaining that the registration link will allow them to register for the future ones and get them.
Oh,
on
the
website.
October 27th.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you,
Sure.
Tracy. I was like, I don't get it with 27. The resources, the ideas, great. We provide this session quarterly because we know that SSAs, there's turnover in the SSAs, but anyone can attend, providers. I think we made it global enough that you can apply it to your own role, whether you're a transition specialist, an employment specialist, community integration, an OT, a therapist. Thank you, Natalia. But please feel free. New to the DD world. Wow. And again, if you're interested in having more support to actually use the tools, integrate it, get feedback, and develop some competency, let us know. Thanks, Boris. I'll just thank you because. Personal perspective, thank you very much. Real life examples, oh yeah, I got stories. Deeper conversations, thank you. I'm so glad you said that. That's great. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you to those who participated and went in the breakouts. Thank you for typing in chat. Really appreciated it. Good luck as you use, and please share with us the impact that using Charting the Life course has made on the people, on your work, and also on the people you support. The examples given, okay. Oh, new to the role, oh my goodness, okay. All right, thank you everybody. Appreciate your comments, appreciate your attention. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Good seeing you.
Thanks.
Yeah, he's like Portage Lakes area. Yeah.
I like the Portage Lakes area, whoever you're talking to. I've been
Barbara-
in the lakes.
Barbara, are you going to be at Synergy next week?
No, Boris, I take care of George and I don't
Okay.
want to expose myself to 300 people. I
Okay.
just am not comfortable doing that yet.
Okay. We'll keep George up in prayers.
Thank you, Boris. I just need to be careful till I feel a
Oh,
little
yeah.
safer.
Yeah, totally understandable.
Yeah, thanks,
All right.
Boris, but thank you for asking.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful job, Barb. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You'll send me the chat, huh?
You know I will, as soon as it's
Thank
done
you,
here.
dear.
You bet.
Have a good
Thanks.
day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.